quite a lot of our generation is in that stage where we're also kind of lost. 2 years ago, when my dad passed away, so in quarantine in COVID, in a hotel room by myself, nearly a month in solitary confinement. In March, my best friend suicided. Challenges your mental resilience again. When you're put in high pressure situations, you tend to become a lot more calmer. Compared to everyone else, you've kind of already been through hell, basically. It was like a full transition from like your child self, sort of innocent, not really knowing much about the world, to just like kind of an absolute monster in a sense. They put you in a system and tell you that the system is your entire life.
It's
And
designed to create wages who will be subservient to the system.
the sense of passion is replaced by tolerability. It stems from the lure of these jobs, which is in essence money. You know that you have all of this within you, but you're just you're obstructed by the most minuscule stuff. And
You've been purposefully trapped in a cage.
yeah, and it's infuriating and taking all this information but in essence, we're truly not built to take in all this information. And so you have to be able to distinguish that that's a different reality and that that's not your reality. And so you have to sort of put that aside and sort of learn more about yourself and focus on things that you truly do care about.
Why not
Thanks.
bang the recording as well? And then if people see this, it means it was a great conversation.
Yeah, anything's possible. I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely. How's your day been so far, man?
It's just started. I woke up like 10 minutes ago.
Sick. I think we'll both be matching low energy levels because I just came back from like a 2-hour sparring session, got my ass handed to me. Like, look at this, bro.
Holy shit. What the hell?
Yeah, like I got a bit fucked up.
Dang, that's crazy. What, was it boxing or?
Yeah. Oh, you can't really see that one, but that arm's completely fucked.
Yeah. Holy shit. Bang.
Yeah,
okay.
I've just started boxing, so I'm an absolute rookie. But one of my good mates has been fighting for like 4 or 5 years, and he's bigger than me. He's 6'1", and he's Russian. I don't know what I was expecting from that fight.
Yeah, no, I feel like the fact that he's Russian is kind of says a lot.
Oh,
they know how to box.
Bro, they come out the womb fighting. I don't know like what's up with it.
No, it's crazy.
Okay, but yeah, okay, you just woke up, but how was your day yesterday? You also got a sick backdrop. Is that just in your apartment or your library or what's up?
That's our little study room area at UCLA.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, it's sick, man. It's crazy. It's like one of the meeting rooms. Yeah.
How does this work? Oh shit, that zooms in. Okay, crazy.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, no, I mean, yesterday? Went on a little 5-6 mile hike in the morning. Came back, got a trim, and went on another hike.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't really do too much. Did a little like SMMA deal yesterday as well. But that's about it.
Nice. So then we can bridge straight into that. So the way I understood it from our short introduction is you're building a SaaS, correct?
Yeah. So I'm actually like my SMMA is like kind of my long-term vision. And sort of the SaaS is a relatively short-term, but sort of like my co-founder is looking for like scalability within that software area as well. So who knows where that might go. But essentially I kind of created a SaaS to kind of help my SMMA. So it's mostly like we're kind of turning it into also like another just easy B2B product. So
Okay, cool. And then
Uh,
is it a scaled solution
yeah.
like for a particular client, or was it just a vision that one of your co-founders have?
Well, I actually came up with it just mainly because it was a problem that I was running into in my SMMA,
Hmm.
which I'll basically kind of just tell you like a little bit about it, which is it's a social media analytics dashboard, but it uses sort of like AI to predict what the best time for posting is, and sort of like it kind of generates, it kind of just collects all the data, processes it, and sort of outputs the most optimized and easy to read data for any user. So yeah, we're kind of in the middle of building that. Um, but yeah, no, it's we're probably gonna do like a little subscription thing as well, just to like not only because initially it was just only for me, but now I guess we're doing subscriptions as well. So
Okay, nice, man. That's very cool. So I'll run an introduction at the beginning, but
mhm.
basically just give me a bit more about your history. I know you're originally from Hong Kong. You're now at UCLA in the States. Did you move there recently? And like, what's the story? A little bit more of your background so I can understand like how maybe sort of the mindset shift that you have, because that's where I want
Yeah.
to then focus on is like the mindset and the whole mentality. I can see instantly sets you apart from, I'm sure, a lot of people, even at UCLA.
Yeah, no. Phew. So I was born and raised in Hong Kong, um, up until the age of 12 when I moved to the UK alone. Moved to a boarding school south of Oxford, maybe like 15 minutes. Um, but it was, yeah, it was a boys' boarding school, so you kind of know that I was like, that environment basically made me automatically lock in, because you kind of get rid of all the drama and all the sort of other stuff that you have to care about and focus only on your studying, which I mean in some ways is good, but it's like again, coming out into the real world, you're gonna have to deal with that problems later down the line. But sort of as a kid, you kind of truly know what the grind mentality is like. Um, but yeah, I think as you said before, like mindset shift, the main mindset shift for me was 2 years ago when my dad passed away. Um, and he was in Hong Kong, I was in the UK. And sort of after my dad's death, I had to spend nearly a month in solitary confinement, um, sort of in quarantine in COVID, in a hotel room by myself. So I wasn't like exempt or anything, but it's like it's kind of like your monk mode, but probably on a more extreme side of things, you know, for a month. So that's kind of when my entire like perception of the world and mentality shifted. Um, and yeah, I mean, the following years sort of was you kind of just saw like exponential growth within me, sort of like you would constantly like challenge yourself, push your boundaries, and sort of all of that. I took on quite a lot of like excursions and physical challenges during those years. So, yeah, like wild camping in Scotland for like a whole week, try to survive on my own. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, led me to hella bunch of experiences that I was like, okay, I normally wouldn't do this, but because of the whole thing with my dad, I've experienced a lot worse. And so you just go ahead and do those. Um, and yeah, I mean, those 2 years focused on studying quite an academic weapon, might say. uh, Yeah, no, it was mostly the reason for that is mostly because I kind of didn't want to disappoint my mom, just because she put a lot into my education and all of that. And so, yeah, got into UCLA in uh, about 1 year ago, actually, and just been here ever since September 2023. So, yeah, I'm studying business economics right now. Uh, but yeah, no, I mean, I applied to the UK and stuff, applied to Oxford, didn't get in. So here I am.
I mean, I think UCLA is not that much of a step down. Um, but that's very interesting. That's something I'm extremely grateful for as well. I also went to a Catholic all boys school
Hmm.
in South Africa, private school as well. And like you said, that mindset shift, that ability to be able to lock in, and tied with me as well. I come from a single mother household, and I find that very interesting that not wanting to disappoint your mother and understanding the struggles your mother went through to give you the opportunities that she did adds to that grind set mentality. Because I also became an academic weapon and I put my all into my studies. Um, yeah, and that's I think I haven't met anyone who's as dedicated as people like you and me tend to be without that respect for their mother or their father and wanting to provide for them in whatever way,
Hmm.
whether that is through your own success, through that feeling of duty, um, to repay your mother, let's say, for everything that all the opportunities you provided with her. I always think of it, it would be a disservice to my mother and all that she struggled to do to give me the opportunities if I wasted those opportunities, you know?
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, I want to bring it back to you went through a hectic monk mode. If you even want to call it a monk
Yeah.
mode, like that is, I can't even imagine the mental resilience built up in that month. Now, I'm sure that that month itself, or however long it was horrible. But like the
Yeah.
person that it turned you into on the other side,
It was like a full transition from like your, you know, sort of child self, sort of innocent, not really knowing much about the world, not really caring much about the world, to just like kind of an absolute monster in a sense, Um, sort of like during that time, you can't see family, and it's like every single day is truly just a battle of your mind. And it was, yeah, I mean, as you said, it was hectic. Um, but you go through all the emotions, you go through sort of like anger, sadness, and um, sort of more on the depression side. But the person that you become after you go through such an experience is sort of like shifts the perspective, shifts the limits more of mental resilience, because you basically feel like you can do anything at that point. Um, it's like more of a nothing to lose mentality, more of a, fuck everything, fuck it, let's just
it
do
builds
it.
up resilience because
Yeah.
everything else, that pain, that discomfort pales in comparison to what you've already been through. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I have a perfect quote for this. Aristotle, because I read a lot of Stoic philosophy. He said, "Whosoever is delighted in solitude is either a wild beast or a god." That's the quote. Like, that's
Yeah.
ridiculous, bro. And the fact that you were able to go through all of that, yeah, I'm not gonna call you a god, but like, but like you
Wow,
said, it's that
that's
animal mentality of just carry on going, or like nothing's as hard as what has happened already.
mhm. Yeah. No, okay, well, I should probably expand. In the next 3 months, um, probably like what happened then was more in the October, November. in March, my best friend suicided. Um, and that was hard because that's like that sort of challenges your mental resilience again. Um, and it was like, obviously it's sad, but at the time, I was like under a lot of academic pressure as well. Like the following week, I was supposed to do my SATs, um, and sort of like my school final exams and all of that. And so it's like those, like, just to have that consecutively was pretty difficult, but you sort of learn to understand more of yourself and more how to navigate your emotions. I'm still like having trouble. I mean, today, it's not like, after you go through this, you're set for life, you're perfect. No, it's you just gain a deeper understanding of how your mind works and how you sort of react to circumstances and situations. But the one thing I would say it did help me was that when you're put in high pressure situations, you tend to become a lot more calmer. Um, just because compared to everyone else, you've kind of already been through sort of hell, basically. So when it came to sort of situations that required like a lot of pressure, sort of like my actual academic final exams, it was more of a it became more of like a I don't really give a fuck mentality. Like, this isn't what determines a lot in life, versus someone whose like entire life was writing upon it. So I became more calm in that sense. And I mean, I still delivered on my academics, but it was at the sort of at the cost of something most people wouldn't really want to go through, but kind of defines me as a person or a character, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I truly believe you can judge a man by his stress tolerance. And like you said, being able
Mm-hmm.
to either willingly or unwillingly be placed in those high stress scenarios is the main determining factor of how you come out at the end, how your mindset is. And like you said, it's a constant progress. I mean, dealing with the death of your father and then shortly after the death of your best friend, suicide of your best friend, that is hectic. But you also don't know if that's the worst it's going to get. There will always be harder things to go through. And yeah, like you said, it teaches you more about yourself, about your mindset. It's on that constant journey. Socrates said, I'm quoting the Stoics like always, to know thyself is the beginning of wisdom. And that's, I believe, what a lot of people can't do in the modern world. A lot of people lack the ability to sit alone with their own thoughts. And I believe that is the root cause for a lot of the world's problems. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it yourself, the level of personal doubt, insecurity, depression, all of these mental aspects plaguing students in particular, and young men in particular, especially because we're less vocal about it. Like you said, we'll often cage up and we'll just go through an entire internal battle. So that's hectic, man. Yeah, but I can understand. I'm beginning to get more of a clear picture of why you are wired the way you are and what makes you so determined.
Yeah.
It's depth, right? It's depth to your character.
Yeah. No, and I think sort of as you said, the main trait in today's world is that people also lack a lot of self-awareness, and sort of, especially when you get sucked into social media, you start comparing yourself to other people. You kind of forget who you truly are, because you're constantly influenced by like thousands of different things, by your friends, and sort of just by random reels on Instagram that, you're sort of gaslighted and brainwashed into thinking that you like
Yeah.
something because other people like something instead of what you truly do like. And sort of that for me is sort of one of the things I guess I'm still struggling right now. But when you go through what I've gone through, the amount of self-awareness gets to the point where it's like, okay, I realize that this is a separate thing. You know, it's a separate reality, separate entity. It's Instagram. It's sort of designed to make you sort of acknowledge all of this and take in all this information. And but in essence, we're truly not built to take in all this information. And so
Yeah.
you have to be able to distinguish that that's a different reality and that that's not your reality. And so you have to sort of put that aside and sort of learn more about yourself and focus on things that you truly do care about. And the only way you find what you truly do care about is sort of to distance yourself, really. Distance yourself from Instagram. Um, and I learned that especially during that hectic period. Um, you know, because I mean, before I was like sort of sucked into Instagram as well, you know, like I was, you know, looking at what people posted on their stories and where they've been and like, you know, what they,
Caring about the comments, seeing who liked it,
yeah,
who's messaging who,
you
who's hanging
know,
out with who.
and, you know, you also care about the validation you get from the number of likes, the number of views, and sort of when you put it into perspective, like after, if you, especially if you go through big events in your life, you know, these things don't matter like at all. But some people make it their entire personality to maximize the amount of likes that they get and or maximize the number of views that they get, possibly just like making themselves a different person in the process, you know?
Yeah. And then that ties back to the idea of that personal intrinsic self-reflection, of that isolation, about distancing yourself and being able to be alone with your own thoughts and understand your own psyche. Because I also believe, one, you have to understand who you are, you have to understand your previous biases and indoctrinations, but then also tie that with the goal of the person you want to become, what values and morals you deem respectable and honorable, and have that goal. And then it's about how do you bridge that gap so that you can become that person. I mean, we can go down the entire rabbit hole. Like when you think about how much you have been influenced, how much of your personality, of who you think you are, is influenced by others. From preschool, when you were chucked into your first indoctrination camp, standing in lines, taught how to think, under fluorescent lights, bells signaling breaks like a factory work floor, all of your teachers imprinting values, your parents imprinting values. There's so much that I believe it's only recently, at least me personally, I've started to really consider whose advice and whose opinion I then accept, and
Mm-hmm.
like that I use to understand more about myself. Because, like you said, there'll be a lot of frivolous things like Instagram people, haters commenting, or like these little details that, like you said, don't matter at all.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I always like to do is, if I wouldn't trade lives with that person or an aspect of that person's life, I don't accept their advice. Because that's also something you got to be careful of. You got to be careful of people's advice that don't align with who you want to become in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's
And
a whole nother tangent.
I mean, go down another tangent about education. You know, it's like, as you said, we're sort of always absorbing other people's values and sort of growing up. Obviously, the only people that we kind of listen to and sort of pay attention to are teachers in schools. And
And you listen without thinking and without realizing that you are molding your personality and your identity to what's being told to you.
yeah, I mean, wasn't that the Prussian education system model?
Yep, that the
where
US and the rest of the world has adopted. Yep. And it was
yeah,
designed to create workers for the factory. Yep. Same model,
yeah,
still.
it's it's sort of crazy to me how people have not found out about this. You know, it's I mean, if you sort of took the time to like research the history of education, you realize kind of like how fucked up it is, you know? And so everyone sort of think was sort of thinking that, you know, schools sort of to create sort of like to foster creativity in a way, you know? Like, but in essence, it's like nowhere close, you know? It's they put you in a system and tell you that the system is your entire life.
It's
And
designed to create wages who will be subservient to the system.
yeah, that's yeah. And sort of I've seen that on numerous occasions, you know, some of the smartest people that I do know, I've asked them the question. I was like, so what do you want to do in life, you know? And you know, they automatically their minds automatically turn down the education route. You know, like especially in the US, you have to do sort of 4 years of undergraduate, then you go to graduate school and all of that. And so I'm like, okay, so what do you want to do in life? And they were like, I don't know, let me just get a good GPA or get a good grade in school, graduate, and I should be set. You know, I'll probably go down to med school or law school, and that's you have to realize is an additional like 4 years of their lives. And I'm like, okay, so what are you doing all of this for? And they simply tell me is that so they want to just become doctors, lawyers, just to earn money. No, like the sense of passion is replaced by tolerability, you know? And this tolerability stems from the lure of these jobs, which is in essence money. And so it's it's sort of hard because I see it in I'm in an environment obviously where sort of academic success is the number one priority. But to make this your entire life is just sort of it's a showcase of how especially the Prussian education system was just so specifically designed to not realize that they're going down this path and becoming workers and working for money, you know. And sort of I this was one of the things that sort of came to my mind maybe like 2 years ago, especially like sort of during that time, was that when you put into perspective how important school is compared to the rest of life, it's really sort of two different sides, you know? Like there's more to life than just school. But people in this generation make school their entire life. And there's obviously like there's a number of sort of cases where people have not gone to school and have still been successful. But every one of the people in this school or in any school that has sort of like good academic standing will obviously call these people sort of lucky, you know, or they don't expect these people to thrive in life, and they determine that the only indicator for success is academics and where you go to school and your grade and what clubs you've done during the school, you know, because they view that it's one system that sets them up for success, and that they believe that until they sort of end up in a roadblock or an obstacle that sort of shifts their mentality. And so I feel like probably you and I both had that sort of realization pretty early on. Um, Mine was probably like much more forced, but I'm thankful for it nonetheless. But it's still our realization stems from, you know, there's in essence more to life, and more indicators of success than purely just academics. So.
No, 100%, man. I agree with everything you said. And the same people who will call others lucky will go on to, like you said, they'll do their undergrad, or where I come from in South Africa, it's also important. You have to do your bachelor's, then your master's, then maybe your PhD. And then you amass debt the entire time, and then you are a slave to the system. And then you start understanding, okay, why are you doing this all? It's the surface level goal of money. But then you understand, like, this is another method of enslavement. And once you understand the monetary system and the fiat standard and how everything works, you realize, like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. People will give up their health, they'll make their academic career or their personal career or their job their entire personality, and that's all they'll focus on. They'll sacrifice everything else. And I just think that's a bad deal.
Yeah, no. There's this really good movie. I think it was called okay, wait, I might have forgotten it. But it's sort of the same actor from Night at a Museum, I think.
Yeah.
But in essence, this movie was, this guy was living sort of this repetitive job for like 60 years, you know, and he made his job his entire life. And there came a point in his job where it required him to like get out of corporate life, to sort of go on adventures, go explore. And it's sort of like, in a way, a visual depiction of the realization of how much time he spent during this job, how much sort of wasted, like how repetitive his job was, you know, as you've said, like especially corporate office settings, the fluorescent lights, the commute to work, sort of, you know, even he gets tired of it. He starts to visualize life better than that. And so sort of, you know, most people think it's just movies, you know, it's like, oh, it's just a character going through his little life, and then this is the whole plot line, you know, it's just, but sort of for anyone who realizes that this movie is truly about what most people do in life, you know, and so it's sort of one of those things where if you watch it the first time, you probably would just think nothing of it. But if you watch it sort of again and again, you start to draw parallels of that in your life, and you realize that your life isn't actually that far, you know?
Yeah. And one thing I found insanely interesting. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. No, it's fine.
So one thing I found insanely interesting is there was a book made of it as well, but you can also just read the PDF online. It's the top 10 regrets of the dying. So it's people on their deathbed, and they were asked questions like, what are your biggest regrets in life? And the number one was that I worked so hard and I neglected the rest of my life. And I believe what they mean by that is, like you said, they made it their personality, but they sacrificed on family, on personal values, on staying in shape, on being mentally sound, on being physically fit, on longevity, biohacking, be able to be there for their family, being able to raise a family in the first place. All these things, or they will give up on their personal dreams. That's another thing. It's like people will sell their dreams. They'll give up on their dreams for a certain amount of money each month. And that's just a fact. And once you create that divide between your internal reason why, your drive, your calling, then you fall into the mundane, monotonous process until you hit a midlife crisis, whenever that is, till you get hit out of that, like shaken out of it rigorously. But tying it back to the regrets, I also believe that then those people have those regrets because they were working on the wrong thing. I believe if you have something that you can pour your heart and soul in, that you don't necessarily have to enjoy it, but you can enjoy the process. It's like, I didn't enjoy getting absolutely slammed and beaten to shit today, but I understand the mental benefits of being able to get hit, being put in a situation where someone is better than you and you are at a loss. You need to learn how to get hit and get hit hard. And it's the same thing for if you're building something. I believe men are happiest when they are building something. You need something. I don't know about you, but I fell into that almost depressive state. I wouldn't say I was depressed, but that depressive state or stage of my life when I had nothing to work on of value. And that was a real turning point for me, because I can find things that I can link it to certain things of value. Again, my higher self, my overarching goal, the person I want to become at the end of the day. And that, I believe, is what I'm fixated on. And when you can get things that align to that, it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. No. I also just found the name of the movie, by the way. It's called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
I haven't seen it. I must add it to the list.
Yeah, you must watch it. It's you do realize it. But yeah, sort of adding towards
watch it tomorrow when I
what
can't get out of bed the entire day.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I just have like a question for you, actually. It was sort of, did you ever feel lost during the academic system? Sort of, you don't know
100%.
what you want to do in life?
100%. I believe I had no idea. Okay, so a bit more about me. I was also an academic weapon. I don't know how the grade standard is there, but for me, I graduated with distinction, which is over 80%, from a private school, which is a higher level exam standard than the normal government schools in South Africa. I then got accepted to one of the top universities, the University of Pretoria, for mechanical engineering. So I went there, I studied my first year bachelor's there, and then after the first year, I moved to Germany, where I currently am. So through that entire process, it was always just that was the path that's laid out, and you follow it, because in South Africa, you don't have any opportunity to make any money whatsoever, have any good life, if you do not have a degree under your belt, because they have high unemployment and the job market is bad. In general. So I was just mindlessly following that path, and I thought, okay, it doesn't really align to my interests. I'm good at the subjects that mechanical engineering. I kind of like how things are put together and understanding how things function. But my plan was to then do that and then pivot into the investment banking world. So anyway, then I moved over. So I do believe I never really consciously felt lost in that process, but I definitely didn't understand it or have it aligned to my higher purpose. So you could say I was lost in a way, because I was just mindlessly following the path that was set out for me that everyone was doing. I think there were literally of 100, just under 100 people who graduated my year. Only 2 people didn't go to university. Didn't start with their undergrad. Where I really felt lost was when I moved over here. I moved over here and started working in the 5-star hotel industry through a family connection, and I really enjoyed it. I learned that I was a people person. I am definitely more extroverted. I love that personal interaction. I love the conversations with people, getting to know people more intimately. And then after that, because there was a gap, so the South African academic calendar ends in December, and then I moved over here in January, and then the intake here in Germany only starts in October. So I basically had a gap year, which I didn't take. I went straight from high school to university. So I was like, okay, that's where I stayed in the hospitality industry. And then, yeah, I kind of still aspire to that mindset, one, mainly out of respect for my mom, because I can tie it back to another quote. Carl Jung said, "The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived version of its parents." And adapting that to my personal scenario, my mother never went to university, and she struggled climbing the corporate ladder, and she always believed she was looked down upon and reached glass ceilings at a certain point because she didn't have that piece of paper backing her up when everyone around her did. So she really wanted me because, I mean, bless her soul, she wanted the best for me, and that's what she thought was the best. So I subscribed to that mindset again of that's where the direction I need to go. So then I applied, got in, started in October. That was last October. And then but I had gone through so much growth at that point. I mean, at that point, I had averaged over a book a week for that entire year. Previously, I'd never read a single book in my life, not even the prescribed ones for school. I just watched the summaries.
Mm-hmm.
I read 57 books that year, over a book a week, all personal development, all mindset, all finance, all entrepreneurship. And I had started my agency at that point, signed a few clients. So I had a completely different mindset. I went hard in fitness. I built the best physique that I possibly could in that time frame. I went from 57 kgs being skinny, I was skinny all my life, to 78 kgs lean, shredded. So then when I started here in October, I went to university and it wasn't aligned with who I was. And that's when I entered that stage of depression. I was going to lectures, feeling lost, didn't see the end goal. It didn't align with who I was. I was already on the path to my higher self in all other aspects. That university and that academic path didn't fit into that model of where I knew I was going. And there was a lot of internal conflicts because, again, my own previous indoctrinations, it was also the societal pressure of then becoming a university dropout. And that was a very negative aspect in my head, and the aspect of then disappointing my mother and going against what she wants for me. So that was a lot to deal with, and that I was lost. I wasn't building anything at that point. I had stopped my agency, so I had nothing. I was literally just living the student life and all the vices that come along with that. And that was the worst period in my life. And then it eventually came to an end where I sat down with one of my best mates at the university, and I literally said, "Sell me on staying in university." Like that was the entire topic of conversation. And he could not come up with any valid points. So yeah, I dropped out. And yeah, it's been only up and up from there. So that I then want to pivot it in. You can ask any questions if you have, but I want to pivot it into the reason, what is the value that you still see because you are still currently at university?
Yeah, well, I feel like from what you told me, like we basically sort of have the same story. You know, my first few quarters at university, I was attending lectures, and it's a lot of what the fuck am I learning? You know,
Yeah.
because at the
No,
time
for
I
me,
was
it was
learning
like,
like,
it was straight after Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, went on stage and
yeah,
he said, like, oh, coding, everything is out. The new coding language is English because of the development of AI. And now it's become more
yeah,
accessible. And I looked at my program for the next 3 years and I was like, 20-30% of my time is going to be just learning how to code basically. And I was like, that's already
hmm,
redundant.
yeah, yeah. No, I was let me just list some of the courses I've been taking, right? So I've been taking earthquakes, sort of just studying earthquakes for no reason as a business economics major. You know, at like English composition, which was like some super liberal woke program. Um, Japanese literature for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Portuguese his culture for also no reason whatsoever. But all of these things that I've had to take are requirements of my school to fulfill units, which is
Yeah.
something I can't escape because it's sort of the way the system was designed. You know, and in order to stay in school, I had to take them. But at that point, you know, you feel like it's what are you even doing this for? You know, just to satisfy some degree that, but I've wasted so much time in my life, you know, like I confidently say the amount of time I've wasted on these courses is probably adding up to 3 months. And within those 3 months, the amount of work that I could have done, the amount of potential I could have done and achieved was something that, yeah, as you said, over time made me depressed because you know that you have all of this within you, but you're just so you're obstructed by the most minuscule stuff in like sort of the courses that I don't want to learn and that you have to do. And
You've been purposefully trapped in a cage.
yeah, and it's infuriating, as you say, it's like it's what is you ask what the valid points of university are. And for me, I could name actually a few, but like one of the main cons of university is that I spend so much time doing what I don't want to, and your freedoms get taken away from you in this sense, but and also achieve what? So to achieve a degree on paper that,
So
if
let's
you
go a
want to
bit
go
more
into
into it.
investment banking and stuff,
Yeah,
it's
list those points, because I believe if it is something that is your calling to be an open heart surgeon, or to be like a very specific way, okay, you require a degree. Understandable, that is your calling, that it aligns with your higher purpose. That's who you see yourself being. I can understand it. But
yeah,
for anything else where that's just a stepping stone, you don't know where you're going to be after, you're just using it as, oh, it's nice to have on my CV. And then, like me, I was going to go completely in a different direction. I was not going to stay in
mm,
engineering.
yeah. No, obviously I respect anyone who has to use their degree in order to achieve their calling purpose. You can't take that away from anybody. And
100%.
there that's why I'm more on the sympathetic side than most people on the stance, is that, there are people that want this degree, to get their job, because if you put it into perspective, the position that they will get after this job was much better than what they grew up in. And I respect anyone who goes through that progression, because it's not an easy one. Not everybody has to go down the entrepreneurship side. Um, and so, sort of going back to why I think I'm staying in university, and you may disagree with this, but my I don't go to university for the courses anymore. Um, Sort of all the economic stuff I'm absorbing, but I'm not really using, or there's no applicability to it because it is also all theoretical economics. But what I stay here for are the people and sort of the connections, mainly because if you think about it, the connections that you have in school could also be your greatest workforce, because that they're all, in order to get into the school, you already know that their skills are sort of validated and verified. And the main thing is that sort of my co-founders of my agency I found here at school. Um, my co-founder of my software business I found here at school. And that's because that through the skills that they have in order to get into the school, I've been able to sort of realize the ideas that I have, especially on the software side. Um, there are people here whose software skills are sort of like just hidden gems or hidden talents, and some people are also on the entrepreneurship side, like my co-founder, but some people also, as you said, want to do personal projects, as you want to do stuff that boosts their CVs. And frankly, this is the best way they can boost their CVs, just because the internship and job markets in sort of California right now are super competitive, that they will do anything to help any cause. And this is how I stay. This is why I stay in the school, is that you kind of get sort of a team of specialized people, in essence, for free. I mean, it's not like just free manual labor, but it's benefiting both of us. And sort of in that sense, that's why I'm staying in school. But it's also important to realize that, I'm not the only one in the entirety of the university who has the same mindset as me. You know, there are people, especially frankly, down the business economics route, who, traditionally only see investment banking as the end goal, who are also on the same path as me, the same mindset as me. And what I can gather from these people is that, you know, obviously in order to get into this school, you have to be a hard worker. And although this mentality of grinding and being a hard worker plays into the worker system, if you use that energy to pursue anything entrepreneurial, the the potential is limitless. And so what I can do and what I can vet is that the people that I find here will do whatever it takes to achieve something, and it is my job and my responsibility to lead them into materializing these things. And sort of what I've what I've gathered from my time here at UCLA is that, you know, the more people that I meet, the more opportunities that I can get as an entrepreneur, mainly because that I don't have to go through the hassle of finding people with a certain degree of skill set. And so that kind of takes something off my mind. Um, and so what came out of it was, obviously my SMA and my SAS. Um, and yeah, we're sort of, but we work more not in the classes, but outside of the classes, but we apply the same sort of grinding mentality as academic students in the entrepreneurial side. So.
Yeah, no, fair. And I do agree with the 2 points that you touched upon, being particularly with prestigious schools, the access to a network. That's definitely can be valuable. And two, like you mentioned, it's an easy way to vet people that they are of a certain caliber. And it's very interesting that you then use that and you take on the responsibility of bringing these people into your team and then making sure that they can materialize those goals. And I want to touch quickly upon, yes, you're 100% correct. The entrepreneurial route is not for everyone. And people with that drive and workforce and connections can also, let's say they pursue in economics, then they have a couple side projects in software. They can join a software company at the entry level and like a smaller company and grow with them, and you can reach crazy heights. But my only counter argument to that would be, would you be able to get access to certain people of the same caliber while reclaiming a lot more of your time without the university itself? Because if I look at it as 4 years of the amount of growth, personal growth, and the amount of connections and networking and people I can pursue different projects with is exponentially greater than that being limited by university.
Yeah. And so this is sort of the trade-off, right? Is that what you're doing is you're sacrificing a lot of your time for these connections. And so I have argued the point that I am adamant about staying in university, but I never really said I'm that adamant of graduating. And so staying in university for me is, as you said, it's 4 years. But my time frame for me to overtake, so it's like a personal challenge, right? It's to overtake university. And how would I overtake university in my mom's eyes, which would essence be being able to provide for myself to a point where it's, there's no question that I will be successful at life, and when it reaches that point, I believe I will drop out, mainly just because that would be the turning point where my mom is like, okay, I see that it's a limitation to you. And sort of like, especially if you understand, like we're both living in single mother households, you know, it's there's a lot more to just there's a lot more to the decision than just the logical sense. You have to take into account the emotional sense, you know, because you know, like as you, like sort of the same story is that my mom has also been grinding the corporate ladder and almost like came from came from sort of almost nothing, was bad at school but still grinded the corporate ladder and hit those same glass ceilings, you know. And so I don't think I'm at the stage yet where I can confidently say, or as in have results to say to my mom that, you know, what I'm doing can take this so much further. Obviously, it's different from my personal vision because my personal vision is like, you know, global. It's like it's a big vision. But sort of to my mom, she'll probably think it's more of a phase, you know, something to good to add to my CV. And so until I get to a point where I can sort of prove to my mom that this isn't just a phase, this is what I want to do in life. This is, you know, and it produces these results that indicate that, you know, I I would find success in life, you know, and that's sort of in the middle of where I am now. It's that I have sort of my view is I have 4 years to get out. That's like my maximum time limit for this challenge. And so within these 4 years, I need to find a way to get out as soon as I can, because I know that after 4 years, the arguments that my mom can make of me trying to get into investment banking and all of that, you know, she'd be like, "Oh, you have this degree, why aren't you using it? You know, you could find this job easily for 150, 200K, you know." And so I'm in the stage where I'm sort of just like crawling out of school, like out of a trying to crawl a way out through my businesses to escape this. But from the observations within my first year, those are my initial arguments still stand, and I may continue on for the second year, but I'm not entirely sure I'll continue on for third and fourth year because obviously I'll reach a limit of how many people I know and how many people I can use and employ. And so, yeah, but sort of my reasoning for not dropping out is, I guess, my mom, you know.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't understand it's a very valid point and it's a very big barrier that you have to get through. I mean, I had a conversation with my mom that basically went, listen, I can pursue this route, and yes, I can be successful in your eyes in terms of I can have a good salary, but I know for a fact that my calling does not align with it. And me as a spiritual entity, that doesn't align with it, and that will create friction in the terms of depression, in terms of the other qualities of my life suffering. And it was definitely a hard conversation, but I was pleasantly surprised by the backing and the sense of understanding I got from my mother as well. But it's interesting. I haven't met a person yet who completely believes in the academic system and that is their route to success. Everyone that I have spoken to is the same like you. I think it's impressive that your time frame is then 4 years and not like a lot of people who'd be like, I'll start an agency and I'll reach 10,000 a month in the first 3 months. It's like, no, you won't. But
The amount
that's
of
good that
the amount of people who believe the YouTube videos is kind of crazy. You know, once
is
you
ridiculous.
start to do it on your own, it's not like that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then when you start to do it, you realize that you yourself are actually the limiting factor. Your mindset, your preconceived notions, your thinking that money is scarce, it limits you heavily. But yeah, I had a lot more I wanted to go into on that. Question, do we want to hop on the Daniel community call that starts now?
Oh,
Or
there's
do
a
we want
Daniel
to
community
continue that?
call?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I'd rather continue this because
Bet.
as much as I love the Daniel community call, it's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. I
Uh,
mean, it was like 2 weeks ago
yeah,
where we first met. That was the first call that I even joined.
yeah, same. And sort of like it's crazy to me because there's a lot of people or entrepreneurs within that community where sort of are on the same wavelength as I am, which is
Yeah,
like
I understand.
I've
But
definitely
then again,
struggled to find
tying
that.
that back, that's the same thing as you use UCLA for. It's that filter of the certain type of people that you're going to meet.
Hmm.
And like that's those communities are insanely valuable for those things. And that is then my counter argument. Like, how many of these communities could you be a part of? How many interesting people could you meet that you wouldn't have access to through university? But I do understand the access standpoint from a prestigious school. I have the exact same with even just my high school. It is one of the top two best schools in the entire country of South Africa. And that comes with its own network. It's like instantly there's people in the highest positions all over the world who graduated from that school. And if you introduce yourself through that, it's instant validation. But like you said, it's for the other things that come with it. It's not necessarily for your academics because everyone can go and do well and get their high school diploma, or by us it's called the IEB matric, to a certain standard. But going to a certain school that instills the values, and especially a Catholic all boys school, the values, the morals, the way of life, the respect, the person that it molds you into, that is sort of the validator that then gives you access to that network.
Yeah, and I guess I'm in the same position as you. I went to the top 12 school in the UK. Like 30 or so of my friends went to Oxford and Cambridge. And as much as I would love to say that this is an indicator for me being successful, it is absolutely not. What people don't realize was that out of this school, basically 50% of my grade decided to take gap years and to try out to like roam around, travel, learn more about the world, but also sort of like to try out something of their own. And that's that's not what you expect from sort of like a top academic school, you know. But I feel like it is quite a lot of our generation is in that stage where we're also kind of lost. And it's it's a bit sad to see that people, who know that they're lost get limited. Sort of like in my position. Um my vision for where my businesses are is, like it's big. I dream big. And that's kind of what I've done ever since as a kid. And a lot of people, like, just tying back to the point earlier, is that a lot of people think that running a business is doable and easy and you could do it in 3 months and boom, you're successful, you're living the life in like Monaco, or like, you know you got mansions now, Lambos, all of that. But in essence it's not, and the sort of the mentality you have to go through all of these things or to sustain for that long, for like years, like as you said, my time frame is years. What I'm seeing and what I'm sort of like seeing right now for my future is in the time frame of years, because I know that you're not just going to get it instantly. Otherwise, like, everyone else would be rich. And but the people that are driven by these sort of YouTube videos and all of this stuff, I believe come from quite a lot of the materialistic side, you know, because they instantly see, oh, 10K a month. This guy's standing next to a Lambo. This guy's on a private jet, you know. But for both you and I, our motivation isn't isn't the material part aspect of it, but rather the journey of building it, and to finally find sort of like a greater life purpose for ourselves that just so happens to be outside of the education system. And so sort of we don't believe those videos anymore, you know? And just to take an example, like, all those Imangaji videos, like how to get to
Of
like
course.
10K a month, all of those, and there was a point, I think maybe in COVID, where I believed a little bit of those,
Yeah.
but then it's like, if you go back like to his oldest videos, like 7 years ago, it goes, here's why I managed to sustain 7 months without a client and to
Yeah,
get
and
to
then
where
that's the
I am.
realities. Yeah, it's not focusing on the materialistic, and that I believe is the highest purpose you can have. That's what I try to preach, and that was the reason for me creating Cigar Sessions, the podcast. It's distilling lessons to help people at that lost stage of their life. So you need to start looking beyond the material, beyond the surface level. And for me, I always think about it, I believe mindset comes first. And one, you need to be able to understand yourself fully, and that takes solitude, and that takes putting yourself in high pressure situations like you were in yourself, but also then becoming fixated with the person you want to become and bridging that gap. I believe there's so much value in that, particularly for our generation, and that's the need that I sort of saw. I mean, I have so many friends who are completely lost, who don't know why they're doing what they're doing, who are depressed, who are probably borderline suicidal. And it's starting to feel like a lost generation, because we're a generation that is beginning to understand that there is a lot more to life that, like you said, exists outside of the standard educational system. And that there's also more than just making your job or your career or your academic career your entire personality. And there's things more important, such as your health, such as your relationships, such as raising a family. And our generation has also slowly started to wake up to the fact that all these things were indoctrinated into us, and this whole worldview is sort of warped, and we don't quite align with where that river is taking us, so to say. And that leads to a lot of people feeling lost, and people will either go down a hedonistic path of just pursuing pleasure, or they will follow the path that's laid out for them neatly by society. But I believe if you don't understand yourself deeply, intrinsically, personally, and are able to discover your higher purpose, your higher calling, like you said, love the journey, be able to last, be able to sustain it for the long run, you are going to, at one point or another, come out of the other side and feel like you've wasted a large proportion of your life. And that regret, I believe, is one of the strongest forces we currently have.
Yeah. And sort of what I haven't said yet, but um, it in order to sort of last this long or have this longevity, it does come from regret, you know. And there's this really good book called The Power of Regret by Daniel Pink. Um, but in
I'm actually add
essence,
that to my list right now.
it's absolutely amazing. But here's why I'll tell you it's amazing, right? Is that it's not like your conventional book. It's not telling you what it is, but instead every single page is someone with a regret, right? So you can imagine that there's maybe like 300, 400 pages of regret on every single page. Someone didn't pursue their love interests. Someone didn't start their business. Someone lived 60 years without, being able to have the guts to say something to someone,
I believe that's insanely important, because what that does is it shortens the gap between you and your future self realizing those regrets. And it's sort of human beings need one, something to move towards a goal, and two, a pain to move away from. That's how we're wired biologically, naturally. And that is bridging the gap between that pain point and making that more real. I've added it to my list. Thank you. That's beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's you're kind of living so many through this book. You're living so many different lives at once, you know, and each life is defined by a regret, and so that puts it a lot into your perspective. How much regret do you want to have when you're 60, when you're 70, that you would have to put into this book? And for me, that basically was like, I the good thing is that I'm reading this book young, you know. I was like maybe 17 at the time. You know, I haven't made all my huge massive decisions yet, so to speak. And you know, this book has driven me to, yeah, you know, my mentality was, if I didn't start a business, or if I at least didn't try to start a business in university, I would have regretted it for my entire life, you know. And you do that enough, it sort of gets to an inch more into an intrinsic feeling that everything that's hard, you know, you have to do, and you just do it. It just gets easier because you know that future self will regret you not having even a small stuff, like sort of going to the gym that one day, or
Yeah.
having not done your, like, sort of your journaling, your sort of disciplines, your habits, you know. And it's, yeah, I mean, this book basically did change my life, you know. And obviously the conventional rich dad poor dad thing, like, I know everybody has read that book, you know. um but my dad actually gave it to me when I was 12, you know. And so, I mean, it was a book that changed his life, and so he wanted me to have it early. But obviously I was 12, I had no idea what they were saying, you know. Like, you know, people making money, like reserve systems, monetary
But
policies,
you
you know?
might have internalized certain aspects of it, and props to your father for that.
Yeah, you know, like the analogy in the first like few chapters. Um, like I think it was like the making money one, but also like the grocery store one, and sort of like for even a 12-year-old can understand that feeling, you know.
Yeah,
And so,
for sure.
like, even though I didn't get all of the other stuff, like, you know, whatever, like bull market, recessions, all of that, I got the essence of it, which was that, how do I, yeah, as you said, how do I make money work for me? You know, well, not, I mean, you didn't say that, but sort of that's what I'm articulating, is that how do you
Yeah,
make money work for yourself to a point where you don't have to do what you don't want to do.
yeah.
Um,
To the point where you can achieve freedom.
yeah, and so for us, you know, we're driven by visions, but you have to sort of admit that we're also interested in the money, you know, because
Of
at the
course.
end of the day, we do have to like sustain a lifestyle. It may not have to be the most glamorous lifestyle, but we have to learn how to live for ourselves. And I think that's what, you know, that's why I have a bit of sympathy for people who want to go down a certain academic path, was because they know that where they want to be, or what like job that they truly like, for example, like that they've liked as a kid, does require this, and they don't mind doing this. They see the trade-off and they don't mind doing it. And so I'm in that sense, like that book has kind of taught me that what I personally want to do is more on the entrepreneurial side, you know. Um, and sort of at the same time, you know, my sort of talking about my dad, he was actually, he did quite a lot of business. Actually, he made his own businesses, and so that's where I kind of saw the rich dad poor dad analogy in real life, you know, because my mom was in corporate, while my dad was making businesses. Um, but that's also not to say that, I've only seen like the success of business. That's not, like, sort of looking back, there were times where he worked, well, he like left his family to go study in Canada, um, by himself to do like engineering, and then came back, did two more degrees, and still he felt kind of lost. He did an
Mm.
engineering degree and did a law degree, did a business degree, but at the same time, when he was trying to start his business, he was also doing like 2 to 3 part-time jobs a day.
Yeah.
And so what the reality of what people see is that, you know, you start a business, you see the success, you see like, oh, he quintupled my mom's income, like imagine how good that is. But no one ever sees the start of a business, like the working overtimes, the 24/7 working, the long term. But he had a long term vision, and I pursued it, and he pursued it. And so for me, that was sort of the the story that led me to believe that all of this was possible. But I knew that going into this, it's never easy,
Yeah.
contrary to whatever YouTuber says.
Yeah, literally. And I want to tie back a little bit into the regret standpoint and speak directly to people. It's you need to start thinking at the end of your life. Try put yourself in those shoes of would you regret not seeing yourself in the best shape humanly possible, not seeing what your body is truly capable of? Would you regret not pursuing a family, starting, if you decide not to do that, starting a family, pursuing, even if it's as basic as going down to talking to one girl and possibly finding the love of your life, whether it comes down to starting certain businesses or pursuing a passion that you have, but you sacrifice that passion for the academic path that's laid out in front of you. I believe those things are insanely important. But going back to you personally, I think that example is insanely good for you, not only developing your long-term mindset, but also understanding, one, to have a larger time frame, and two, that it will be difficult and that there will be those those grind times where you don't have anything. Again, back to Iman Gadzi, when you look at his older content of how to outlast, the game is about endurance, how to survive the droughts, how to survive the bottom, the pits. I actually had the previous guest that I spoke to, Lucas. He is also insanely impressive, and he also had a very good role model in his father. His father was in real estate, C-suite for a big company, and he left that to pursue his own entrepreneurial ventures, to start his own real estate company. And he failed 3 times, went bankrupt 3 times. And having that example to follow and the mindset that comes with that is, I find, insanely interesting. It's something for me I never had. So context, my dad has always done odd jobs here and there. He spent time in the yachting industry and the building industry. Both of my parents never studied, so he went sort of the more relaxed, like he would work certain seasons for 3 or 4 months and then he would do nothing for the rest of the year. Whereas my mom was kind of the polar opposite. She went directly into corporate, and then just carried on climbing that ladder. So I never really had a personal example of what the other side looks like. I just had the example of, okay, the struggles that I can visibly see if you don't go down the academic route. And that was kind of why the academic route was pushed upon me. And I think you're very lucky to have came to these realizations as early as you did, because for me that only really happened, yeah, late 20s when I turned 21, maybe after my 21st birthday. Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely respect anyone who doesn't have that visualization in front of them, because I acknowledge, because you're sort of believing something that may not be true, you know,
Yeah,
versus Lucas and I know that it's true. And
you've seen that
so,
it's possible. Yeah.
yeah, and that's a lot easier to like sort of tolerate it, especially through the tough times, you know. But I'm sure that you yourself had tough times where maybe a little bit of doubt creeps in, but you destroy that doubt.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm pretty like just sort of grateful for the situation that I'm in, is that sort of all of these things are coming together, and sort of now I know what I want to do, you know, and I do realize that it doesn't require like maybe before when my entire life would depend on one grade, you know, now it just doesn't depend on anything. It doesn't depend on any grade, just me, myself, and my willingness to work, you know,
Yeah.
and it's it's uh it's a pretty lonely path, which is why I'm sort of like on the more side of co-founders, is that to find, you know, you're also happiest when you're building with people, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And sort of there was a quote in like Daniel's last video, is that if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go with people, you know. And so we know that we have a lot of these mental challenges, these like, you know, slow times may not be like, you know, there are times where things are rough, and you have to also get, I think it's also important to get people, whether it be a community, whether it be your co-founders, to acknowledge that there are times where this is natural, you know. Things are rough, you know. It's just that if you put it into perspective, people who study for finals find the final 2 or 3 weeks rough, but people for entrepreneurs, you know, we're bound to have this rough period, and may just be in the spontaneous time. And
And that's
so
something I really want to comment on is the acceptance of those rough times. I believe that was a major mindset shift for me is I started appreciating the rough times. Okay, I don't have any money coming in, but this is necessary for me to appreciate in the future. Alan Watts, philosopher, said you cannot ever have a convex without the concave. You cannot appreciate the one if you don't have the brokey days. And being able to understand that in the moment, I believe, is an insanely valuable skill where you can say, okay, I'm down. Okay, this isn't working what I'm currently doing. I may be at the lowest point in my life, but future me will look back at this as the pivotal points that then, one, propelled me to where I am going to go, and two, it gives you that contrast of then you can appreciate everything. And I believe if you can find the gratitude and the appreciation in that moment, you have an insane power. And that's another thing, gratitude. I don't believe the highest emotion that you can operate from is gratitude, full stop. That's something that I believe. I don't believe you can ever be anxious, scared about the future if you are at the same time grateful. Grateful for the opportunities, even if they are bad. You are grateful for the learning opportunities. You are grateful for the plot twists that have been sent your way, for the curveballs, for the low points. That, I mean, I love it. I've been called like one of those crazy people. I can tie it into an example. I was training and I left my watch in the locker. And I was like, walked out already. And I was like, I'm not the sort of person that forgets these things. And this was in Germany. There was sleet, ice, rain. It was minus temperatures, windy as hell. And I was like, okay, I can appreciate this moment. And I literally walked, no shirt, no nothing, took my coat off, took my shirt off, and walked the 15 minutes home through that, just as like a sort of mental resilience exercise of that's the punishment for me for getting something trivial like that, because that's not who I am. And it's being able to like just enjoy the rain, enjoy the convex, enjoy those shit moments where everyone else is cowering from the rain. You cannot appreciate the good weather and the sunshine if you don't appreciate the rain.
yeah. And so that's, gratitude was something that, you know, I, up until that hectic moment, I never truly understood. Um, Mainly because sort of like I was put so in Hong Kong, I went to the number one school in Hong Kong, and everyone around me is top, almost top 0.5% of families, you know? And so I got sucked into the materialistic stuff, like, oh, but this family has a two-story penthouse. This family has, drivers. This family has, like a backyard, And I used to remember as a kid going up to my dad and saying, why don't we have a penthouse? Why don't we have it? Why don't we just get a driver? Why don't we do this and this? And sort of, I was sucked into the materialistic world because that was also my environment. And so up until maybe the age of 16, I was always caring about what other people have, and I had to have it, So I never really experienced gratitude, but after that point, when you're just placed in like a deep hole of scarcity, is when you truly experience gratitude, you know. Um, and that hectic time was, I was sort of grateful that I had that experience because obviously it shaped who I am today. And I know a lot of people who probably would not have done the same things I've done coming out of that. I knew people that sort of were depressed, would, cut themselves and sort of go down that route. But as you said, at that point, it's gratitude leads to the defining moment. The defining moment of what will you do in this situation. And sort of I have a really funny story, was that when I went wild camping in Scotland, I didn't have a toilet, right? And so you would basically just shit next to the river naked while having like 100,000 flies around you. And even a small stuff like that, let me tell you, I'm grateful for a toilet nowadays. you
Yeah.
know, it's it's even the small stuff that you got to be grateful for, as well as the large stuff. And when you start to employ gratitude within every day of your life, it basically becomes an explanation for everything. Like, why am I in this shit situation? The things that you can feel are either, oh, I feel really bad, I feel really terrible, my entire life's going wrong. What will I do? Everything's going wrong. Versus, I'm grateful for this experience. I'll take it as a lesson. And when you start to employ this method of thinking, your life as a person just becomes so much easier, you know, because also your mind is sort of like a feedback loop, right? You are what you say. I think the book Psycho Cybernetics explained this pretty well. But it's the what you're injecting into your subconscious consciously is what you truly believe. And gratitude, if you as you employ it over and over again, your mind shifts from sort of the dark stage to sort of the light, and you learn to employ gratitude in almost everything. And that's a much better way to live, in my opinion.
No, definitely. And that then becomes another thing that you have to work on, is being able to employ gratitude in the here and now, in the present moment, which is not always the easiest thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ridiculous.
yeah, I've experienced this through trading. Trading was, if you ever have you ever traded before? Just like,
No, not properly. I do understand the world quite a bit, though.
mhm.
So was it
Yeah.
Forex, or was it crypto, or was it S&P, NASDAQ,
Oh,
micros, minis?
uh, I started trading. Well, okay. At the age of 16, I took over my dad's investment fund, um, which was a couple millions of dollars. Um, but sort of that, it basically followed this one stock, And there were obviously, as all charts do, there were ups, downs. I was 16. I had no idea how even like the monetary policy was worked. I had no idea how the entire system worked. I had no idea, like, that's a lot to take on for a 16-year-old, right? And
Definitely.
so that my main thing started in stocks. Um, and there are times where you have to just learn to hold. There's times where you have to learn to make the right decisions to ladder out. But yeah, no, when I turned 18, I started my investment account, bought a couple stocks here. Honestly, I've like lost maybe like $500, $600. Um, and then by November, I think I got more into the crypto side of things. So I'm pretty like large into crypto. I bought Bitcoin at 26,000. That was like my first ever crypto purchase. Um, and yeah, no, eventually it just got a bit more degenerate. You go into sort of from Bitcoin to the altcoins, so like maybe like the ones of utility and all of that, and to like what I literally am right now, which is meme coins. And sort of public perception of meme coins is that, there's no concrete indicator for it. There's no algorithm. It's all luck, you know. Um,
It's what the
and that's
crypto
where,
people like to call pumpamentals. But yeah, I
yeah.
understand. I can understand a lot what you're saying because I started my first stock account before I was even 18, opened it under my mother's name, and I'm currently quite heavily in crypto. Only one meme
Mhm.
coin.
Wait, what crypto are you in right now?
So also heavily altcoins. I'm not in Bitcoin, Ethereum at all. I'm in a lot on the Solana ecosystem and a lot of bigger projects with utility like Hedera, HBAR, Flux, Manta Network, sort of those type of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know the founder of the big blockchain club at UCLA created Flux?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's it's actually it was actually that's why we also have a blockchain club at UCLA. Just talks crypto. But like we have representatives at the Token 2049 in Dubai just as
Yeah.
a school club, which is absolutely insane. But yeah, no, I'm heavily in the Solana ecosystem as well. I truly think it's the future, the speed, the low fees, everything like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I like the meme coins are what crypto is technically all about. You see the 100x's, the 1000x's. I mean, the only like 100x I could think of last cycle was probably Matic. Um, but this cycle, it's like
Bro,
you're
Dogworth had
seeing.
what you know.
I actually got into whip at 0.2.
And
Um,
when did you get out? That's the important question.
I got out at 0.4. My friend convinced me to sell for this one stupid meme coin that got rugged. Otherwise, I would be like 30K up on a $600 investment. Uh, but you learn, and there's this project right now that it's like a little gem. It's like a lot of the whiff people are just trying to recreate that into cat scene right now.
The one
I don't
meme
know if
coin
I
I have is a cat coin. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, which one are you thinking about?
El Meow.
Mine's Shark Cat. I don't know if you know
I
it.
have not heard of this, bro. What is this? I'm googling this.
You gotta Google it. It's absolutely amazing.
What sharp cat?
Shark Cat.
Shark. Bro.
It's funny. You gotta admit the picture's cute.
Yeah, the picture is cute. I do believe there will be a shift to cat coins, and that's kind of my little play of
Yeah,
just put a little in there and see if it does like crazy 100x's, 1000x's. But
yeah.
98% of my portfolio is in. Obviously, this cycle I want to get out, and then I want to
Hmm.
maximize the amount of money I can get in and get in the next bear cycle. So I'm optimizing again longer time frame for multiple cycles. But I'm also invested in all of my projects, well, 98% of them. I am okay with holding through to the next cycle if I don't reach my sell targets.
Hmm.
So like I also do prescribe to a lot of that, investing in good projects.
Yeah, I'm more on the max risk guide. Like I think 80% of my net worth is in a cat coin right now. Yeah, but it's yeah, no, the meme coin I just, like they're having like parties in NYC and stuff, like art museums and all of that. So it's like
Bro, did you see Dog with Hat got on the spear in Las Vegas? On the spear in Las Vegas, that was
I
ridiculous.
know,
They raised like six
I
hundred
know.
thousand dollars in like a week and then put it on the spear.
Yeah.
Um,
Shark Cat was also gonna do that as well. Um, but it's kind of like a hidden gem because the most followed cat on Instagram, which has 4.2 million followers, is actually associated with this crypto token. So,
okay.
well, that's my narrative. But just sort of go back into like just investment and trading, like the mindset or psychology that you get from trading, to be able to like hold, to be able to, go against a lot of your emotions, like panic selling, you know,
Yeah.
these things.
And to go against the common narrative, because that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing as investing is, like the Warren Buffett famously said, you want to be greedy when others are fearful and
Hmm.
fearful when others are greedy.
Yeah. And if it doesn't work, then well, I mean, it doesn't work. Crypto or investment or in trading shouldn't be your entire life. And that's
Yeah,
why, like, even though I put so much of my net worth in crypto, it puts me in a situation where I simultaneously have to make more of my net worth through other means. And, that's also one of the things of being able to start businesses, you know, is that no matter sort of um, like small amounts of money you're getting, at least you know that you have the capability and means to make that money, and
yeah,
that
but cash
you
flow.
don't put, yeah, and you don't put sole reliance on one thing. And this is sort of like where I'm at right now. I'm sort of in the starting stage. Like my crypto portfolio has gone up literally like 9K and down 9K. Um, and so that's when I realized that there's got to be other means to this. It's not sort of one solution, but you can also employ that to any problem, right? Because any problem may not have one solution. There may be alternate solutions, or like a second alternate solution. And the main thing about, especially if you're trying to go on your own journey, is that you have to be flexible to other solutions. You have to be open. You have to
Yeah,
not stick to one way of how everyone else does something. If you put this in sort of life terms, that's the same thing for us. We're finding another solution to how we live life. Um, and so even though like sort of investing and trading like on a minuscule is very small, the philosophies that you get out of it,
you can
you can apply to
extrapolate it to
everything
life as a
else.
whole. Yeah,
Yeah. And the only way you can, the way I see it, it's like a mini world, right? Where you feel all the emotions. You feel FOMO, you feel loss, you feel gains, you feel happiness from gains. And that's why a lot of it teaches you about life, because in the same thing, well, in the same way, everything happens just on a much longer time frame. You know, FOMO from your peers graduating, and for example, FOMO for when their corporate job gets 200K and you're only making like 50K, you know? But these are emotions that especially if you trade, you learn really early on.
Yeah.
And that's how like I've also been able to grow my mindset for this, was frankly through investing and trading. It teaches you a lot about life and how to manage emotions and your own psychology, and you become a lot more self-aware in that way as well.
No, for sure, man. 100%. And I'm just thinking we're going to have to like call it soon, because this recording only then lasts for 2 hours. A mate of mine already swapped the battery because the camera battery died. So I don't know if you saw when it went sideways and then went black for a second. It's tactical reload on batteries.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, the entire crypto thing is insanely interesting, because then it also, for me, you see those massive pumps and then you realize that it teaches you even stronger. Like, it adds conviction to the previous research that I did about money not being real. And then you see it's like, okay, people will go to work for, I literally made a person's monthly salary in like a day.
Yeah.
And it's like, you look at then the input and the output, and you see that those two aren't tied together in the current capitalist society. And that, well, I mean, you can see it clearly. If the hardest working people were rewarded in proportion, all the wealthiest people in the world would be builders, would be bricklayers, would be people working on the oil rigs, those type of people. But there's a disproportionate amount of money attached to the smaller, the elite. But because I believe that gap is a lack of knowledge, and again ties back to mindset, you have to believe that these other avenues are possible to even pursue them. Then the ability to accept that you are a novice in those things and learn, and not be trapped in your singular mindset, be open to other possibilities, and constantly develop yourself in those spaces.
Yeah. And as you said, you like crypto goes up like maybe like 500, 600%, and meme coins are basically normal,
Yeah.
And you get like, over time you get so desensitized to it,
Yeah.
like, and that's kind of one of my main fears, is that I get so desensitized I don't even know when to sell. But it's,
I already have my
yeah,
sell
as you
in place.
Yeah, well, you never know with meme coins. You never knew, like, just
Yeah.
like I never knew of WIF. I had my cells at 0.4. Now it's at like 3.6 or something. But yeah, it's just like, as you said, the people that sort of work the hardest, or the rich, or if they were the richest, it would be bricklayers. It would be sort of like janitors and those. But the gap, as you said, the gap in knowledge is that, I think the main thing that we both learned a lot about, or gained knowledge from, was like just media references, right? Not through school, but sort of like the books that we read, the movies that we watch, maybe even the podcasts we listen to. And so
it's controlling the programming of your subconscious.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, that's how we get on these opportunities, and we capitalize on these opportunities. Not everybody knows of crypto. Not everybody knows the capabilities of crypto, and we've capitalized on that. And in the same way, I think it's a bit scary, don't you think, that the gap of knowledge of this level exists? Like, it may not be the gap of knowledge in crypto, but
But
the gap of knowledge in everything.
it also provides people with the willingness to learn, the opportunity to climb the ladder, so to say, to move their way through the hierarchies of life. I think the world is getting more and more dictatorial, in the sense of that gap being able to move through different wealth classes became massively easier with the internet, but I believe is starting to shrink again on a macro scale. Yeah, but you also got to keep in mind there are so many people who can't think like we do. I mean, there's a lot of people who can broaden their horizons even more than we can. That's something we have to work on as well. But that gap creates opportunity. And the world is there for the taking for those who are willing.
Yeah. And to see these opportunities, the decision to capitalize on these opportunities also comes down back to regret, you know?
Yeah.
You may present the same opportunities to someone else, but they may not capitalize on it, because of a number of reasons, because of social anxiety, because of FOMO, because of sort of like this and that. And
because of how they're raised, because of who their parents are, because of what educational system they went through, in terms of their cultural history. Like, there's a multitude of factors. Yeah.
Yeah. And that obviously at the end requires a degree of self-realization, and the only way, as you said, to sort of be self-aware is self-realize is mostly through solitude. I'm sure that you went through an experience where you felt lonely, where you felt that, lost. I mean, we both have.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a normal step of being a person and being a human. You're not going to do the same things that everybody else is going to do, and sometimes that's okay. And I feel like it's not normalized, especially because of social media.
Yeah.
And sort of what we use social media now for is, I'm guessing, also to just build a personal brand. You know, we're capitalizing on the opportunity to outreach a lot of people to sort of get our opinions and voices heard. And I think that's what social media should be for. But
Mm-hmm.
the reality of, on the sort of minor scale, within like friend groups, within just communities in general, is that the reality of what these people are caring about is like, oh, did you go to this party? You know, um, did you how was your trip with these and these people? You know, I'm so jealous. And
Mm.
these are the emotions that, if you spent that much time thinking about other people, thinking about yourself, you know, you would get to a point where you realize that these are just negligible thoughts, and your brain power could be used on something that possibly fills your life purpose even more.
Yep, correct. 100%.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to stop the recording there, but we can chill on the call for a little bit longer.